The encouragement for today will come from Mark chapter 5, verses 1 through 20. And the encouragement is good news, Jesus can help. In verse 1, it reads that they came to the other side of the sea. Now, just as a little background, what has just happened is at the end of Mark chapter 4, verses 35 through 41. And that is the story of the storm at sea. And if you remember from that story, there was a storm and the waves were filling up the boat and the disciples were very, very afraid. And then Jesus calmed the storm, and after he calmed the storm, it says they were really afraid. And they asked a question. They said, "Who is this man?" That's a good question. Well, now here they are on the other side of the sea, and they get off the boat. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever been on a storm at sea before. When I was in the Navy, I got to be in a storm at sea, and when we got to shore, all I wanted to do was get off that boat and find something that wasn't moving and hold on to it tight, because that was very frightening. And I don't know, the Bible doesn't reveal to us what happened here. Maybe that's what these guys did. But try to put yourself in their position. Put yourself here with the disciples in this story for a moment. I don't know what's going on. They'd been in a storm. Maybe they're cold and wet. Maybe they're going to build a fire and try to dry out. But somebody has to say it. Somebody has to realize it. Hey, we're in a graveyard. Now, my imagination can start to run away with me sometimes, and if I'm already scared, and then I find myself in a graveyard, I might start fantasizing all kinds of things and might really get worked up. In fact, I might even want to get back on the boat. But this is what happens. They're in this graveyard, and it says, immediately a man comes out of the tombs. And listen to the description of this man. If you look at verses 3 through 5 of Mark chapter 5, it tells us this about him. Nobody could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. They would chain him, and he would break these chains. It says that he would groan and cry out. So this guy is screaming. It also says that he would cut himself with stones. So there were some open wounds on this man. And you know, they didn't have triple antibiotic ointment, so chances are this was infected. There might have been a fetid odor coming from this gentleman. So you've just been frightened from a storm. You find yourself in a graveyard, and here comes this screaming, strong, smelly, bloody man out of the tombs towards you. I'm definitely getting back on the boat at this point. And if you look at the account in Luke chapter 8, he's also naked. So this is a pretty frightening scene here. So you might be headed back to the boat, and all of a sudden you hear the master. And you're thinking, what is going on here? And Jesus is talking to him. And I'm thinking, no, don't talk to him. Maybe he'll go away and leave us alone, but that's not what Jesus does. In verses 6 through 9, this man, he's crying out with a loud voice saying, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? Don't torment me." And in verse 9, Jesus says, "What is your name?" And the man replied, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And he's begging Jesus, don't torment us, don't cast us out. And finally he says, "Please, there's some swine here. Send us into the swine." And Jesus gives permission, and the unclean spirits come out. They enter the pigs, and the herd, numbering about 2,000, rush down the steep bank, and they drown in the sea. Now, the herdsmen that were watching these pigs, they went into the countryside, and they told people what had happened. And the crowds come, and they see Jesus here, and they see this man that was possessed with demons. And in verse 15 it describes him this way: he was sitting there clothed and in his right mind. And notice the next words: and they were afraid. I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but there is such a thing as clothing optional beaches. Have you ever heard of those? I lived in Florida for a while, and those were there. And I know to you and I that sounds kind of nuts, and it is. In fact, Mark bears that out right here in verse 15. When he's describing this demon-possessed man, it says, they came to Jesus and saw the demon-possessed man, the one who had the legion, sitting there, clothed and in his right mind. Sane people put their clothes on. That's a footnote, and we can talk about that some other time, but let's move on, because we know these people were afraid. And you know what they did? They began to beg Jesus to depart from their region. So Jesus leaves, and the demon-possessed man, he begs to go with Jesus, and Jesus says, no, what I want for you to do is go and tell people what happened to you. Now, I suppose we should stop here and we should ask a question. The same question that the disciples asked in Mark chapter 4 when they said, who is this man that even the wind and the sea obey him? Why couldn't we ask this question right here? Who is this man that even demons obey him? And it's a good question, because if you look at the story, you realize man could not do anything with the demon-possessed man other than chain him up and throw him out of their town and try to keep him away from their family. But not Jesus. Jesus cast the demons out. Only Jesus could help. Most of us probably have to deal with demons at one time or another in our life. Now, not the kind of demons we're talking about here in Mark chapter 5, 1 through 20, but we struggle with emotional demons from time to time. Fear of being alone, fear of worthlessness, anxiety, the pain of divorce, death. How about the loss of a job? How about financial hardships? Even sicknesses. These are demons. Just fill in the blank with whatever you might be struggling with emotionally at this time. Everyone has demons. But here's the good news. Jesus can help. I know sometimes it might be really rough, and sometimes it might feel in our hearts like the demons are winning. But if you've been listening to these daily words of encouragement, and if you're here right now, I promise you, those demons have not won. And here's some really good words to remember. Jesus has power over all those demons, and Jesus can help.